What if you went to sleep with your entire life savings intact, and woke up the next morning to find it was worth almost nothing? That's not a nightmare. That's exactly what happened to millions of real people, and economists are warning it could happen again. Let me show you how hyperinflation silently destroys wealth before most people even realize what's happening. In 2008, Zimbabwe printed so much money that inflation hit 89.7 sextillion% per month. That's not a typo. A loaf of bread that cost $1 Zimbabwean in 1998 cost $10 billion by 2008. Workers were being paid twice a day because prices doubled between morning and afternoon. But here's what most people miss: ordinary citizens with bank accounts, people who saved responsibly their entire lives, lost everything. Not because they made bad decisions. Because their government made one catastrophic one. Germany experienced the same devastation in 1923 during the Weimar Republic crisis. At the peak, prices were doubling every 16 hours. A wheelbarrow full of cash couldn't buy a newspaper. People literally burned currency in their fireplaces because it was cheaper than firewood. The savings of an entire generation, wiped out in months. Now you're probably thinking, that can't happen in a developed country in the modern era. But here's what should genuinely concern you. The United States printed more money between 2020 and 2021 than it had in its entire previous history combined. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet exploded from $4 trillion to nearly $9 trillion in under 2 years. According to research published by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the M2 money supply, that's the broadest measure of cash in circulation, grew by 26% in 2020 alone. The fastest single-year expansion ever recorded in American history. We haven't hit hyperinflation yet, but we did hit a 40-year inflation high of 9.1% in June 2022, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And here's the transfer of wealth that nobody talks about openly. Inflation is effectively a hidden tax on savers and a gift to debtors. If you had $100,000 sitting in a savings account earning 0.5% interest during 2021 and 2022, you lost approximately $15,000 in real purchasing power. Meanwhile, anyone who borrowed money at fixed low rates, corporations, governments, wealthy real estate investors, watched their debt shrink in real terms. The Federal Reserve's own research from 2022 shows that the bottom 50% of Americans hold 70% of their wealth in cash and checking accounts. The top 1% hold 80% of their wealth in assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, things that rise with inflation. So every time money is printed, wealth flows invisibly upward. A 2023 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that the inflation surge between 2021 and 2023 transferred approximately $1.5 trillion in real purchasing power from wage earners and savers to asset holders and debt issuers. That's the game. That's how it works. So what can you actually do? First, never hold more than 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash. The rest needs to work. Second, understand that Series I bonds from the U.S. Treasury are directly indexed to inflation. They're one of the few instruments specifically designed to protect purchasing power. Third, tangible assets, real estate, commodities, and equities historically outpace inflation over any 10-year period. The people who survived Zimbabwe's collapse and Germany's Weimar crisis weren't the ones with the most cash. They were the ones who had converted their savings into something real before the collapse hit.